The untold secret behind the Garden of Eden temptation. The story of the Garden of Eden is one of the most familiar passages in Scripture, yet its deepest meaning often remains hidden beneath the surface. The narrative in Genesis is not merely about a forbidden fruit or a tragic mistake. According to Catholic teaching, this moment reveals profound truths about human freedom, trust, love, and temptation itself. At first glance, the story seems simple. God created Adam and Eve, placed them in a perfect garden, and commanded them not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A serpent appears, persuades Eve to eat, Adam follows, and humanity falls from grace. But the untold secret behind this temptation is not about fruit, it is about trusting God versus trusting oneself. The garden was a place of perfect relationship. In Catholic theology, the Garden of Eden represents a state called original holiness and justice. They lived in complete harmony with God, with each other, and with creation. They had no fear, no shame, and no inner conflict. Their desires were perfectly aligned with God's will. God's command not to eat from one tree was not an arbitrary rule meant to restrict happiness. Instead, it was a loving boundary that protected their freedom. True love always includes freedom, and freedom requires the ability to choose. Without a real choice, love would not be love. This is the first hidden truth. The tree existed so humanity could freely love God. The serpent's strategy was psychological, not physical. The serpent understood in Catholic teaching as Satan did not force Eve to sin. Instead, he planted doubt. His first words were subtle. Did God really say? Notice the strategy. Temptation began by questioning God's goodness. The serpent then twisted God's command. You will not die. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God. This is the second hidden truth. Temptation always begins with a distorted image of God. Satan did not tempt Eve with evil, he tempted her with the appearance of something good, wisdom, knowledge, and independence. The fruit was described as good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for gaining wisdom. Temptation rarely looks ugly, it usually looks attractive and reasonable. The real sin was not eating the fruit. The physical act of eating the fruit was only the outward sign of a deeper spiritual decision. The real sin was choosing independence from God over trust in Him. Adam and Eve were told they were created in God's image. Yet the serpent tempted them with the idea that they could become like God by their own power. This is the heart of the fall, the desire to define good and evil without God. The Catechism explains this beautifully, teaching that humanity's first sin was a failure of trust. Instead of receiving life as a gift, they tried to seize it as a possession. They moved from dependence to self-reliance. Why Adam's silence matters. Many people focus on Eve's role, but Scripture reveals something striking. Adam was present during the temptation. He remained silent. This silence is deeply significant. God gave Adam the original command and entrusted him with responsibility for the garden. His failure was not just disobedience, it was passivity. He watched deception unfold and did nothing. This is the third hidden truth. Sin often enters through silence and inaction. Catholic tradition, including reflections from saints like Saint Augustine, teaches that Adam's failure represents humanity's tendency to avoid responsibility instead of protecting the truth. He chose comfort. The immediate consequences reveal the nature of sin. After eating the fruit, Adam and Eve did not gain freedom, they lost it. Their eyes were opened, but not in the way they expected. Instead of becoming like God, they became afraid of Him. The first emotion recorded after the fall is fear. They hid. This moment reveals a crucial insight. Sin promises empowerment but delivers separation. They felt shame for the first time. Relationships became strained. Harmony with creation broke. The ground became difficult to cultivate. Pain entered human experience. The fall was not simply punishment, it was the natural consequence of disconnecting from the source of life. God's response is the most overlooked part. One of the most beautiful and overlooked details in the story is God's response. After the fall, God did not abandon humanity. Instead, He went searching for them. Where are you? God already knew the answer. The question was an invitation to return. This is the fourth hidden truth. Even after sin, God's first action is mercy. God then made garments for Adam and Eve before sending them out of the garden. This small detail is deeply symbolic. He clothed their shame and prepared them for a new journey. The fall was tragic, but not the end of the story. The proto-evangelium, the first promise of redemption, Catholics often call Genesis 3:15 the proto-evangelium, meaning the first gospel. God tells the serpent that the offspring of the woman will crush his head. This is the first prophecy of salvation from the very moment humanity fell. God already promised redemption, the entire story of salvation from Abraham to Moses to the prophets begins here. The temptation in Eden was not the end of humanity's story. It was the beginning of God's plan to save humanity. The secret that still applies today. The temptation of Eden is not just ancient history, it is the blueprint of every temptation we face today. We still hear the serpent's whisper. Did God really say, "You deserve more, you can decide what's right for yourself"? Every temptation invites us to choose independence over trust. And every time we trust God instead, we begin to reverse the story of Eden. Conclusion. The untold secret behind the Garden of Eden temptation is not about fruit or rules. It is about trust, freedom, responsibility, and mercy. Humanity's first sin was a failure to trust that God's love was enough. Yet even in that failure, God began the story of redemption. The Garden of Eden reminds us that while humanity may fall, God never stops searching, never stops calling, and never stops preparing the path back to Him. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video.